All right. We're here with Doug on Red Belt Podcast. So, Doug, tell me a little bit about yourself.
First of all, thanks for having me on your podcast. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. Secondly, I am an owner of Apex Martial Arts in Warner Robins, Georgia, and we've been serving our community for 21 years here. And in addition, I've become a speaker, so I've traveled across the United States and Mexico as a speaker. I lived in Mexico for 3 years before having to come back to redefine my business here in Georgia. And I've also written, I don't know, half a dozen or so books. Just look me up and on Amazon and you'll see all the books that are there. So I've done a little bit of everything, and my passion is twofold. One, it's helping people who want to become entrepreneurs and own their own business become successful at that. And two, helping people become the best version of themselves from within the martial arts industry as well.
So, I met Doug recently at a event for martial arts school owners, and so he's used to speaking and helping martial arts school owners specifically. And so, I believe at that things blurred together for me, but I believe at that event you were talking about the kids' summer camp. Um,
Yes.
that's what you were talking about at that event. And how I believe you put some numbers up there saying basically about half your revenue last year came from the couple of months that you did kids summer camp.
Yes, that's exactly right. So the 9 weeks of summer camp that we had last year exceeded the 52-week revenue of martial arts in this program. And we averaged about 140 martial arts students during 2025. So it's not like we're a small school. We're smaller today. There's a story behind that, but we averaged about 140 martial arts students per month last year in 2025, and we did $232,000, I believe, was the number, and slightly more than that than in the 9 weeks of summer camp. So the lesson is don't put all your eggs in one basket. And even if you have all your eggs in one basket, it's okay to be able to expand your basket to different places to add more eggs to it.
And so a lot of the people that I've spoken with before that do summer camps, they do kids after school,
Mhm.
but you don't, do you?
We actually do after school as well. The numbers that I gave were strictly summer camp numbers, though. So we do an additional 100,000 or so a year in after school. We have a small after school program here, which is unfortunate, but the time that we have kids, by the time we pick them up and get them here, a lot of people are getting off work. We have a military base. There you go. Those are the words that I was looking for. That essentially people get off work at 4 o'clock. So, not long after their kids get out of school. So they start rocking their way this direction not long after uh, they get off work. And for us, it's not long that we have them. And because of that, I think that's why our numbers have always been down low. So we had as many as 30 kids this year in our after school program.
Yeah. So you actually do a lot more revenue from summer camp than after school, then, even though you don't have to have the vans, different liability things and expenses that you would have to do for kids after school. For summer camp, you're doing a lot more money on summer camp than after school then.
Yes, yeah, but and you can I mean, you can make it as in depth as you want to, or as little as you want to, when you run a summer camp. If you want to do field trips, there's an additional revenue stream that you can do. If you so go rent a van, if you want, from your local rental company, and take kids out to be able to do that. But just as with everything else, you want to make sure you put the numbers together to make sure you get the best return on investment that you can. Simple as that. Every business owner needs to make sure that they're profitable when they are doing things. And if not, it doesn't make sense to do those things.
So with the um, you're really out there with the numbers, so you're really transparent with your numbers. So would you mind saying like, do you want to say what you usually charge for the sh summer camp versus classes? Like,
Oh,
how much,
sure.
how much more money could a school owner expect to get from summer camp than per customer?
Like I said, on average, what we've seen is that the after school and or summer camp is going to exceed the number of gross revenue dollars that they bring in as a martial arts program only. So let's say you've got 100 students at, let's use $100 or even $200 as a rule. So 100 students at $200 a month is what, $20,000? Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So 20,000 times 12 is $240,000. And probably most schools are averaging somewhere between 175 and a $225 in revenue per student that they have during the course of the year. And now you can take that same $240,000 and what you're doing is you're charging now, instead of charging $200 a month for your after school and summer camp program, you're charging $200 a week. So when you break that down and you work backwards from there, you can see the number of kids that you need in a program to be able to make those dollars is extraordinarily less. And it's not hard to run a summer camp program. You don't have to do it yourself. It's not babysitting. You truly have to find a a a person who wants to run the program. The same thing you do with your martial arts school, and then coaches to be able to run the smaller groups of school of kids rather throughout the day. And from there, it's just making sure they have a good time, making sure they're safe, and making sure they're working on activities that are going to be able to help them in their future. So we work on a lot of STEM activities, indoor games, outdoor games. We do field trips, we have pizza days, those kinds of things that just, again, help increase your revenue as you go. And as a business, the bottom line is ultimately what you're looking for. So if you have a school that makes, let's say you do $500,000 in revenue, the question is, as the school owner, how much of that do you want to net in your pocket? Do you want to take 20% of that home, which would be $100,000? And if you can make six figures on a martial arts school, I think you're doing a pretty good job. And it's hard to do that on a school that does martial arts only, unless you teach all the classes and do all the work. And at my age, I've gotten to the point where I don't want to teach all the classes and I don't want to do all the work anymore.
Right. So so basically you're saying that your prices are 200 a week for your kids' summer camp is what you charge. Do you have a minimum commitment? Can a parent do just 1 week or
Yeah, so the way that we work our pricing is that we start in November, first of all, with our pricing, and we run a paid in full special for Black Friday. And then for us, it's based on timing. If you sign up your child between November and December, you get a price, $147 a week, I think is where we started this past year. And then we incrementally increased that by $10 each month, so that this month, we're May, when last year we signed up 54 new summer campers. They're paying us $197 a week if they do the all summer option. And if they only choose weeks, let's say I only want to come 4 weeks during the summer, then it costs them $257 a week instead. So the ability to be able to make money now is significantly better than people who are saving money by taking their registrations or making their registrations in January, let's say.
and so that is the is what percentage of that is the money that you make? Is that like 90, 95, 99% of the money? Because I know you have some like upsells, right? Snacks, some things
Mhm.
like that. Is any of that significant in what you get from the program?
Yeah, your snacks can be a fairly significant number when it's all said and done. If you're charging a kid $3 a day, that's $15 a week, and then again times 10. So there's 150 extra dollars you're making per customer, into your revenue stream. So what does that do to, when you look at your revenue, you want to make sure that how many dollars do you make per customer per month? That's really one of the key KPIs that you have to look for when you own any business, not just a martial arts school. If you own a restaurant, you want to know how many dollars does this table turn every day? And I want to make sure that that table then is full X number of times a day to be able to make whatever that number turns out to be for your KPI.
So it's interesting how much that little bit ends up being a percentage. So you said it's $3 a day is the optional snack upsell, you said?
We do. So for us in particular, it's $1.50 per snack. And there's two snacks a day. We ask the parents pack two snacks, a sack lunch, and a refillable water bottle. But not all the parents want to do that. Last year, we averaged about between 90 and 100 students every day in our summer camp, and ended up doing, I don't know, $15,000 in extra revenue just from snack sales. So if you've got, let's say you've got 100 summer campers, or even if you've got 100 is probably a fairly large number of people to do a summer camp. But let's say you have 50. You've got 50 kids at $150 each. What is that number? $7,500? I don't know. So that's, again, what do you do with $7,500? Well, part of that revenue goes back into buying snacks, and it's certainly not half. So there's $3,000 probably, or 3,500, or more that you get to put in your pocket. You get to reinvest. You can put into a savings account. You can put into your 401k. You can hire somebody else if you want to, whatever it is that you want to do with that money. And a friend of mine and I, who we own a business called ProMax as well, that basically is a summer camp and after school option course. We found that when we hire somebody to put into our programs, that person generally generates an additional $5,000 worth of gross revenue into our school. So if you have, say you have 10 people that work for you now, if you hire 10 more, that's $50,000 in additional income that your school is going to make.
10,000, that's in gross, right? So that's $50,000
Yes,
more in gross. And
correct.
so, and how much are you paying each of those people? Are you paying them half of that basically? Um,
Now your cost per team member, of course, is going to depend on where you're located at. In Georgia, we have the luxury that we don't have a $20 minimum wage. Our minimum wage is still $7.25, but we pay people between $10 and $15 an hour, depending on their position or more, if they're working as a part of the leadership program that we have. And when you combine those numbers in with the numbers that you bring in, like I said, your net number is essentially significantly better. And again, that's what we're all looking for as owners, is what can we do to make the most amount of money for us? And then the question becomes, how do you reapply that either into your business or into your team or into yourself? What do you want to do with that extra money? And if you can make, I don't know, like I said, if you can make six figures in your martial arts school, I think that's a pretty good job, considering that we don't work 40-hour weeks. Sometimes we work 60-hour weeks, but we teach class in a martial arts school between 4 and 8 most of the time. So it's 4 hours a day. So out of those other 20 hours, how are you trying to create revenue that will increase your dollars per square foot? And if you're just a martial arts school, that's all you have to choose with, then your floor is empty most of the time. So by adding an after school and or a summer camp program, and you don't have to do both, of course, a summer camp program is much more likely to make more revenue for you than an after school program, because like you mentioned earlier, you don't have to buy all the vans necessarily. The cost of gas going up, maintenance on your vans, those kinds of things. You can make a lot more money that way by making sure that your floor is full during the course of the day.
So when you're talking about the amount of revenue you're getting per instructor you have, basically, uh,
Hmm.
the that assumes that that instructor is is quote full, I guess. Like, is that the assumption? Is that they're serving what, 10, 15 kids, that they have their own group? Is that how they're producing that revenue?
Yes. So in every state's a little bit different. In Georgia, we as a martial arts school, we have the opportunity to be able to have a ratio of 1 to 25 of coaches to students. And what we do here is we try to reduce that ratio down to 1 to 20 because we found that it's easier for a coach to handle 20 kids than it is 25. And if you have small kids in a group, you want that ratio to be more like 1 to 15. And for me, the culture that you develop is probably the most important thing. So the first week of summer camp, historically, we send home between 5 and 10 kids because those kids are they don't play well with others. They hit other people. They use abusive language, um, any of those kinds of things. And in the culture that we developed, we don't tolerate that. No bullying of any type, and there's no second chances on specific things. There's a difference again between a 5-year-old trying to take a toy from somebody than there is an 11-year-old trying to take a toy from somebody. So you always have to weigh in common sense as you do that. But when you break the groups down by stage of development, and you have a coach that's in charge of that same program, just like a teacher of elementary school is in charge of that same group of kids the entire school year, they all develop a bond, and you get to know those kids, and you know what works best for them to be able to learn. And we again, we want to make sure that learning is a continued part of their process in summer camp, just like it is during the school year. We don't want a second grader to not be able to go in prepared to third grade. And by being able to teach them based on stage of development, not necessarily an age or a grade, it makes a big difference in how they're able to learn and what they're able to learn.
So, you're within these groups that you make. So you have 15 to 25. So
Mm-hmm.
your program kind of you try to keep it 15 to 20. So
Mm-hmm.
you're organizing them by stage of development, which means you could have a much older kid that's underdeveloped and put them in with small kids, or
Yes, essentially that's exactly right. So in a perfect world, every 6-year-old would be in the same group, right? But
Mhm.
we know that not every 6-year-old has the same mental, physical, intellectual capacity to be in the same group with every other 6-year. Some are in the I don't want to call it the smart class. I'm not sure what they call it nowadays. But you have the advanced class, and then you have some that would belong in an intermediate class, and then you have some that would be in a beginner class as a 6-year-old. And what you want to do is to be able to restructure those children so that they're put into the right class to be able to learn for them the right things in the right way. So if you have a 6-year-old who doesn't know how to write their name, you don't want them in the class with all the other 6-year-olds who know how to do that because now they feel, we're supposed to teach confidence as a martial arts school. And we just transfer a lot of the things that we try to teach in a martial arts environment into our after school program. So that 6-year-old may need to go into a group of 5-year-olds. We may have a 6-year-old that needs to go into a group of 8-year-olds because they have the capacity to be able to learn at the same stage of development as some of the 8-year-olds do. So that's where the getting to know the coach, getting to know the group makes the big difference.
So I want to go more into that for a regular martial arts school, not summer camp in a second. But before
Okay.
that, what how are you getting these coaches? Are these the same coaches you used during the regular school year? Are you hiring after out of work teachers or substitute teachers? Are you hiring like different people specifically just for the summer? Where are you getting and how do you screen who you're going to put with these kids for the summer camp?
Yeah, that's a great question. And this is where a lot of people get scared. We do not use the same martial arts team to work in our summer camp program because all that done, and this is from experience, all that does is burn them out. And I don't want my team coming in to work every day dreading, coming in going, I just don't want to go today. I've got to spend 5 hours or 6 hours with this group of kids and they're going to drive me crazy. So we go through and we have a hiring process, and generally it's 3 steps. Generally, we do a Zoom interview for people, and so on our webpage we have a career section, just like if you were going to go work at Target or Walmart, and you go into our career section and it tells you about the jobs that we have that are available. And we look for people all the time. We are hiring constantly because you never know when you might find that next brilliant person who's going to take your company up to another level. And for summer camp, we have people who will go, okay, I'm interested. I got a text message today, as a matter of fact, from somebody who says, hey, I'm interested in being a summer camp coach that I need to reach out to and set up a Zoom interview. So there's step number one. So we talk on Zoom. We schedule the appointment during the time that summer camp would be going on as a rule, so that we know that that person's available. If the person shows up on time, then that's a check mark, a bonus for them to be able to do that. Then we have the conversation and we have a list of questions that we go through and we ask them. This is a very prepared and staged interview process from our side of it, the Apex side. And then depending on how they do on those questions, we give them a grade at the very end. And if they meet the grade designation of 8 or higher, then we invite them to come in for an audition. And what that means is they come in and we give them a 30-minute time frame to be able to work with the kids or a group of kids at a time, to be able to see how they physically in real time work with kids. What does their classroom management skills look like? Are they able to handle a classroom that has 20 kids? Do they have a certain flair about them? Are they charismatic? Whatever that might be. And we go through and do the audition process. And then it's up to our director as to whether or not that person actually gets hired or not. If they get hired, we put them on a 90-day probationary period, which is longer than what summer camp is anyway. And at the end of the 90 days, if they're still doing a good job and that's somebody we want to keep, we add them into our after school program coaching at the end. Like I said, we always want to make sure that we're hiring people, looking to hire people that are going to make a difference in our company every day. That doesn't mean that we hire new people every day, of course, but we always have our eyes peeled for that person who's going to help take us up another notch.
What are the things that you would grade? Because I know there's a lot of schools that struggle with hiring people, and I think most people don't have a good process for hiring at all. What are the different things that make that grade of that could add to that 8 or higher? Because it sounds like you have a very set system for this.
And number one, the person has to show up on time and be prepared. When we ask people to come in for their audition, we ask them to bring 2 copies of a resume. And to be perfectly honest, we don't even look at the resume. What we're doing is we're finding out whether or not they can follow directions. So on the Zoom interview, we're talking about, are you able to do these things? And again, like I said, on our interview list, we have a series of questions that we ask that range from, what's your experience with kids in the background? What would you do in a situation where a child's having some sort of a meltdown? What do you do in a situation where a child may not want to share a toy? Those kinds of things, so that we're learning about them and their classroom management skills, along with specifically their background working with kids. And then, of course, we follow up with, you do realize, of course, that you have to have a background check done. So every person that works at Apex goes through a level 2 background check from the state of Georgia. Everybody becomes CPR certified, and everybody is available for a drug test at any point.
So, as kind of an example, if you can pick any one of those questions, whether it's, hey, what would you do when a child was having trouble sharing a toy or something like that? What's a
Mhm.
category of different like scoring answers? Because you're trying to make it to where it's objective, right? So it's like what's a good score? What's a bad scoring answer?
A good scoring answer would be number one, you've got to make sure that you intercede as quickly as possible into the confrontation between the kids. Number two, you have to be able to listen to each of the children while you're on their own level. So a lot of people will come over, and as an adult, you're 6 feet tall, 5'10", whatever height you are, and the kids are nearly, they're half your size. You have to get down on their level. So you have to get down on one knee, or you get down on both knees, and you have to make sure that you use positive touch. So you have to put your hands maybe on their shoulders to be able to, to get their attention and to be able to have a conversation with them instead of in a martial arts class, you might scream at somebody from across the room, change your feet, whatever it might be. You have to make sure in an after school program that it's a little kindler and gentler. So a good score becomes I get down on their level. I put my hands on them in an appropriate position. We have the conversation about what good choices look like and what they can be, and then how we can solve this particular problem. The other thing that we give our coaches is that we have I've created a custom GPT that you can literally put in. The app is on their phone and it says, I've got a 5-year-old and a 6-year-old that are fighting over a Spider-Man toy. What are some options that I can present to them that are going to make both of them happy? And it's going to spit out a list of 3 to 5 things that they're able to use in that moment to be able to take care of that situation.
So um, each answer, what a good answer is and a bad answer is specifically designated for each question. There's not like a certain uh, more
Now,
general thing.
no, there's not going to be. I mean, everything is situational, right? So every kid is going to be a little bit different. And that's where the same coach being with the same child over the course of a summer is going to make a big difference. It's like the same instructor being with the same kids during a martial arts class. They get to know one another, they get to bond with one another. You learn which ones learn more through visual. You learn ones that, are more auditory when they learn those that have to do. You get to learn more about the child. Is that child, are they on the spectrum, but they're high functioning and they're in my class? Uh, do they have ADHD and they're medicated, but they don't get medicated for their martial arts class like they do for school? And how do you go about handling that situation when that child, we like to use the phrase around here, butterfly watchers. Sometimes that child loses focus and they're watching those non-existent butterflies that are floating around in the room. How do you get their attention back without doing it in such a way that, again, you're yelling at them from across the floor? One of the great examples that I like to use is when my kids were little, and as a parent, say I'm fixing dinner, it's easy to stand in the kitchen and yell through the house, going, hey kids, time for dinner, go wash your hands. When in fact, the better answer, not the right one, but a better answer would have been for me to have stopped what I was doing, walked back into my kid's bedroom, knocked on their door and said, hey guys, you need to make sure you're putting your toys away. We're going to eat in about 5 minutes. So make sure you put away your toys, wash your hands, and go ahead and come to the table and be ready. So there's two entirely different ways to handle that same situation. One's a little kindler and gentler as opposed to the screaming process, command and control.
So that kind of goes into the same thing of running a martial arts school. And I was going to going to ask you about the stages of development again. I know we talked about it right before
Mm-hmm.
we started recording, but you separate your classes. I think you said it into four stages of development. Is
We
it
have,
also in age groups or?
yeah, there's six total stages of development that we use for our groups. So we have our mini skills group, which is children that are 1.5 to 3 years old. And then we have our early skills, which are kids that are 3 and 4 years old. And then we have basic, which is 5 and 6. We have core, that's 7, 8, and 9. Extreme is 10 through 15. And then elite is 16 and above. And each of those groups has a curriculum that's designed particularly for them. So we teach Taekwondo here. And if you go back to the history of Taekwondo, even though it's, considered to be thousands of years old, the modern version of it didn't happen until the 1950s in Korea. And it was developed for military men who were in the prime of their life to be able to learn as a self-defense and a way for them to be able to stay fit. Well, some martial arts schools still want to use that kind of curriculum to be able to teach a 7-year-old today. And that's not how it was designed. It's like I still want to use a horse and carriage as opposed to a car that gets me to where I'm going faster and easier. The martial arts industry has to be able to move and change just like everything else. If not, and we stay the same place, there's little or no growth. And that's why so many martial arts schools go out of business. There's 40,000, give or take, martial arts schools in the United States. And out of those 40,000, 80% of them have less than 100 students. And you have to ask the question, why? Why is it like that? And if you're in a place where that's only, you've maxed out based on what your demographic incomes look like, then that's fine. And if you're looking to make more money, what do you do about that now? Well, maybe you decide that you want to add a summer camp program, or maybe you want to add an after school program, or maybe you add a birthday party program. What kind of referral program do you have? Are you using one? And if you're not, all of these things, it's what's the old saying? Do you want one way to find 100 new students or 100 ways to find one new student? And it's next to impossible to do the first one. So you have to be able to use different concepts, different, what's the word I'm looking for? Methods to be able to find that one student who comes in.
That's interesting. That's the opposite of what we talk about in martial arts. So you're saying that it's not realistic for school owners to look to say like, hey, I'm going to do this one new thing and get 100 new students, and like it's not realistic for them to grow their school with like one idea, that they're going to
No,
lots of ideas or
yeah, no, I don't think you can't run a Facebook ad anymore. And Facebook is still king as far as marketing process goes. Facebook is still the king. Most of us dislike Facebook because of uh, the process that it takes. You have to go through so many people in order to get somebody from a lead, especially when you're doing paid ads in your door. If you need, let's say you want to have 20 new members every month, the 50-50 rule applies in most places. So if you need 20 members, you need to make sure that 30 people are showing up inside your door. And from those 30, you've got to have 60 that actually set up appointments. And from that 60, you need 120 that were going to be prospects. And most people aren't getting those numbers because they have those eggs all in one basket, or they're not doing anything at all, or maybe they don't have a good follow-up system. But if you were to look and see how many website hits that your website gets, or particularly unique website hits every month, a lot of people would be surprised at how low that number is. For us, we live in a community that's got about 100,000 people in there, and we usually get I'd say we average about 1,200 unique visitors to our website every single month. And what that does then is it gives us that trickle down effect. We may end up with 25 to 40 trials. We signed up 20 new members in March, only 9 in April, but we were closed for essentially 12 days as we went through the testing process, so almost half the month. And then May's going to look like another big month for us. So, We're going to sign up another 20 this month for martial arts only, in addition to the fact that this is going to be where we do about um, a little more than a third of our summer camp signups because our parents, for whatever reason in this community, wait to the last minute to do summer camp.
Back to the stages of development. So everything is separated. So you only have six different types of classes in your whole school. Is that a correct statement?
We teach six different methods, six different curriculums within there, yes. So the curriculum for mini skills is absolutely different than that for core skills.
And so that's it. There's not like a taekwondo and then like a weapons class and that's separated or what, like it's all one thing with six segments, right?
No, but those are additional. I mean, those are add-ons that you can have. So, do you want to have a weapons class? Absolutely, you can do that. Do you want to have a tricking class? Absolutely, you can do that. But as far as the martial arts instruction itself, it needs to be divided. I have found, based on my experience, that's how I should probably phrase this, that it needs to be divided into stage of development based on a child's brain and their ability to be able to learn and absorb the material. I think a lot of martial arts schools make their curriculums too hard. And when it becomes too hard, the kids get frustrated with it, or the parents get frustrated with it. Why did my kid fail testing? It's because they tried to memorize a form, and instead of learning martial arts techniques, they were learning a form that became memorization. And then as soon as they get there, they forget that. And the idea is that we want to keep that student as long as possible so that we're able to have a life-changing effect on their conscious mind so that their decision making forms a pattern as they grow into an adult of positivity, right? We want them to make good choices. Be the just say no kid if you need to be. And we want them to be able to handle can you handle yourself physically? Do you have enough self-defense skills to be able to help yourself out? But more importantly, how do you keep yourself out of those situations to begin with? One of my favorite stories to tell is, and as far as I know, this is not a true story, but it's the story about a guy who says, telling his friend, every time I go to that bar, I get into a fight. And his friend just looks at him and says, maybe you should stop going to that bar. And what we have to do in our industries, we have to make sure that we're not teaching kids material that they aren't capable of learning and understanding yet. So that's why it's important to be able to teach based on their stage of development, how their brain works, where they are. And if you can do that, you'll make it fun, you'll make it entertaining. They'll still learn everything they need to learn about martial arts and how to do it. They'll still learn the core values and morals of martial arts, which will help them with the decision-making process, and you'll keep those kids longer. We need to think of ourselves as a college. And if we are a college, I don't know what tuition is at major colleges nowadays, but it's probably what, $10,000 or $20,000 a year for a fairly large school. And we teach a lot of the same values that they learn in college in a martial arts program. So a martial arts school is worth $20,000 a year, in my opinion. And we don't charge that. We might charge $2,000 a year instead. And we give them the resources, the background, and the material for them to be able to move and become the best version of themselves as they move forward in their life.
When I was, I don't teach Taekwondo, but I took Taekwondo from when I was 5 to 7. And I
Mhm.
remember they had classes that were quite large. They were a successful school. I would say they had 50 plus kids in a class.
Mhm.
And they were large age range. Now, there were a lot of instructors that would go to different groups and go around. And they seem to feel, and I've met other people like this too, that it's like, hey, because it gives you opportunity for the upper ranks that be leadership to the smaller kids, things like that. They seem to think
Mhm.
that you can combine. maybe it's maybe they're quote unquote watering down the curriculum. There's people with different opinions on that, but since much of the curriculum is personal development and stuff anyway, they seem to believe that you could put all these kids in the same room. So you think that's objectively the worst model, worse than a segmented model? Is there any cases where you think schools should be doing that?
I think, without knowing all the details of the example you gave, it'd be hard for me to give a a good a good statement on that. What I have seen in the past in some schools is that yes, you may have 50 kids out on the floor, and of those 50 kids, maybe five of them are yellow belts, but those yellow belts might range between age 5 and 10, and that there may be an instructor who's working with those yellow belts, and they work together by colors as opposed to by age. You almost never see a group of kids who are the same age. They're all 6 and 7 years old, and they may be all different belt colors in the same class, being taught the same curriculums. And when I say the same curriculum, it's not exactly the same. There will be subtle differences in there because you don't want to teach a purple belt the same thing that you're teaching a yellow belt, but it's still based on their stage of development. The same thing I teach a 7-year-old purple belt isn't going to be the same thing that I teach a 9-year-old purple belt or a 12-year-old purple belt, or for that matter, a 4-year-old green belt. We could do the smallest level belt as we go through. White belts, each white belt at each of those 6 levels that we talked about has a different curriculum that they're taught based on their stage of development because they can't all do the same things. A 40-year-old man, white belt, can do a lot more and understands easier a lot of stuff than a 7-year-old kid who comes on the floor for their first time.
So that brings up the conversation of like junior belts, senior belts. Do you have a concept of that? Because obviously, if you're ranking up a 3-year-old, then
Mm-hmm.
they're like, if you have, um, they've been in your program for from 2 to 7, and they've
Mm-hmm.
got a black belt. If you have that possible, then you
Mm-hmm.
have to reset as a lower belt in some other program to go through it, or is it just one belt system? Like, how do you guys consolidate that, or you just won't promote a beyond a certain thing in different age groups? Or
No, for us, so the curriculum is designed in such a way that, let's say we're taking the early skills group. It's designed so we have the belt colors. So our belt colors are consistent between white, yellow, orange, green, blue, purple, brown, red, and black. And the first three are the beginners, the middle three are the intermediate classes, and then the ending three are the advanced class. So let's take our early skills or basic skills program. When you're a child that you have gone through beginner, and you've gone through intermediate, and you've gone through advanced, you actually move into the intermediate level of the core skills, which is the next program that comes up. And the reason that happens because you've already done the curriculum. The curriculum for the beginner is essentially the same of everything that's in basic that you've already done. Does that make sense?
yeah,
Okay.
it makes sense. Because I know a little bit of it already. I'm not sure if it makes sense to the viewer. One thing that even I'm a little bit fuzzy on is you were talking about you don't teach these different belt ranks the same way. Is if you have a beginner, intermediate, and middle, um, are those how do those look? Are those separate classes, or are those exist within these development groups?
They exist in the same class. So the difference might be, in order to gain a stripe for flexibility or continuity or momentum. Let's say we're picking a momentum one. Um, at your beginner level as a white belt, maybe you have to do 5 front kicks. At your yellow belt level, you might need to do 10. You may have to do 15, then a green. And then you may have a different kick that you do 10 of at the beginning of the intermediate level. So your green, blue, and purple belts might do 10 side kicks, 10, 15 side kicks, 20 side kicks. And then the advanced, it may be maybe they're doing a spin side kick. Whatever's in that curriculum to be able to differentiate again, not just the stage of development they have by age and number, but by stage of development that they have for the belt rank itself.
All right. So let me ask this also. So upgrade plans are really common in martial arts schools.
Mhm.
Um, but usually it has to do with more classes or different types of classes or upgrading to an advanced or an elite. Since your classes are segmented based on development ability, do you still do an upgrade plan? And if so, is that done a different way now?
We do. We've actually used what we call an inclusive program for years, and we've recently modified what that means. So we can bring people in at a lower price point now. So our beginning price point here is $149 a month for those kids that are in the early, basic, core, elite, and extreme. And what that means is it only covers their tuition, and anything else they're responsible for buying. So when it comes time for them to buy sparring gear, they have to make that purchase on their own. When it comes time for the belt testing, they have to pay a price for the belt testing. When they have to, whatever that might be that's coming up, it comes out of that person's pocket in addition to that $149. The upgrade plan to this is $199, which includes all of the gear that they need. And now the only thing they're responsible for paying for is testings and tournaments as they move forward. So it's reducing the cost of what comes out of their pocket at one time. Now, do you sparring gear here, when you buy sparring gear at Apex, it runs around $350 when it's all said and done by the time you get all the components that you need. So if you have two kids that are moving into sparring at the same time, you're writing a $700 check in addition to the $300 that you're paying for their tuition that month. So that's $1,000 to the martial arts school. Whereas in our $199 program, you can break it down into smaller, easier bite-sized pieces. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And then at some point, we offer them our final upgrade program, which includes our leadership program. And the leadership program also includes all the other expenses. So no more testing, no more turns. Everything is included at $249 a month for everything that we do. Um, another way that we use, another process that we use to generate additional revenue is we have what's called a cycle T. We do 5-10 week cycles here at Apex during the course of the year, and we tell our kids that you have two options for apparel when you're here in school. You can either wear your full uniform, so you can wear your Dobot top along with your pants and your belt with a t-shirt underneath, or you can buy our cycle tee, and I just happen to have one here, or part of one, and we name them based on what our cycles are. So this is the accountable t-shirt. This is wearing the accountable cycle now. So I can wear this t-shirt with my uniform. The t-shirt costs $22. And if you get 50 people to pay you $22 each, again, we're looking at $1,000 worth of revenue. Your cost is about $6 or $7 a shirt. So, you do the math, you make $600, give or take, right? So multiply that times 5, we're back to $3,000 again. So we got $3,000 in net profit that I'm able to do with what I want to. And we used this same $3,000 number earlier when we were talking about summer camp. What do I want to do with that $3,000? Do I want to put it in my pocket? Do I want to go on vacation? Do I want to take a cruise? Do I want to reinvest it into my company? Do I want to reinvest it into my team? Do I want to reinvest it into, whatever it is, more equipment, different mats, whatever. You have options to be able to do stuff now. And the whole purpose is, again, utilizing your entire floor space to be able to generate growth per square foot. So the two biggest things that we lack, I think, in our martial arts industry is people knowing what is your revenue per person, what does your average person pay you each month, and two, out of the square footage that you own, how many dollars are you making per square foot? And if your floor is empty 20 or 19 hours out of a day, then obviously, that's you're losing a lot of extra money that you could be putting in your pocket.
So the uh, some of these ideas you hear from different school owners, you hear the same things because they're good, right? Well, one
Hmm.
you might have given that might be the first time I've ever heard of somebody saying your normal program is the dobak or Japanese gi, if people don't know what a
Hmm.
dobak is. And so
Right.
you're saying that you would have them wear the pants and the belt, but a t-shirt, they have the option if they buy a new thing every few months, a new t-shirt every few months or so.
Every 10 weeks, correct.
Okay, every 10 weeks. And
Hmm.
so there you don't feel like because the word uniform comes from the idea of like it being uniform. So you don't think you feel like you're losing the value of everybody dressing in the same way by doing that. You think it's fine?
Yeah, I don't know that I've ever been to a martial arts school where I saw everybody dressed exactly the same. Not every person had the same t-shirt underneath their uniform. They weren't all white or they weren't all black or once upon a time in the pipeline that I came from, the tree that I came out of, as a male, you didn't wear a t-shirt under you just had the uniform itself on. So I don't know that I've ever been to a martial arts school where everybody was dressed the same. If you go to the Air Force base down here, you'll also notice that there are a lot of people that are dressed differently. They're in different uniforms because they have different jobs that they do as well. So, do you want to put your instructors in a red gi instead of a normal white gi? Do you want to put your black belts in a black gi because that separates them from those that are below? So there's lots of different things that you can do to upgrade the process um, in a positive way within your own school. So for us, we've decided that you're still uniform in two ways. You either wear the complete uniform or you wear the cycle tee. And for me, it's not a problem. For some, it may be an issue. Maybe they want everybody dressed in the uniform, and that's okay. But what I'm gaining is an additional $3,000 every year that I put in my pocket.
Right. So that's close to time. Do you have any special closing remarks, anything that school owners might want to know that we missed or anything like that? Or and also how can they reach you if they would if there's a way?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm available at I'm on Facebook, Doug Rankin on Facebook, Rankin TKD on Instagram. My email address is doug@apexfamily.com, and Apex has two X's in it. My phone number is 478-256-8715. So it's like you mentioned earlier, I'm as open and transparent with all the numbers and stuff that I have that are going on as I can possibly be, because I don't want people to think, uh, oh, he's just, when you ask a school how many students they have, they tell you, oh, there's 120. And if somebody's buying it, you realize that they have 92. So I'll tell you how many students I've got. I'll tell you what the average monthly revenue is per person, you know, whatever it is that you want to know. I'm an open book. And if you are interested in learning how to make more money using the same floor that's empty most of the day, contact me and let me see if I can help push you into a way to answer your questions as to how you can make that happen. Again, doubling your revenue seems like a smart idea to me. If you want to make six figures or more in a simple martial arts program, and you don't need a lot of space to do that. We have 8,000 square feet here. We utilize 6,500 of it for our after school and summer camp, but we could run just about the same numbers and probably close to the same profit in about half that space.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Doug. Um, and that's what we have. Do you have any closing things for the martial arts school owners that are listening?
No, Brian, I really don't. Other than, again, thanks for asking me to be a part of your podcast. I really do appreciate that. And martial arts has been kind to me for the last 21 years that I've owned the school. And I like trying to give back and get people started on a good business footing. So if anybody has any questions about anything, have them feel free to reach out to me. And let's see if we can, figure out how to make your school better. If that means making a trip there, that's something that can be worked out. If it just means let's look at your accounting and see what your numbers look like, let's start there. If it means let's look at your curriculum and see what you might need to change there. What does your attrition number look like? And if you're running your attrition number over 5%, why? Why is it so high? How can we take the little Dutch boy and put, more fingers in that dike and plug those holes so that those children are staying with you longer, so that you're able to have the impact on them that you want to have, that makes them become the best version of themselves as an adult. Simple as that.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming on, Doug.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I hope you have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Thank you.